Then you might have to open the Zoom window.
Looking intent. Good morning, Luke.
Good morning.
Turn these on again. Fire up the mics. All right, Luke, are you ready to give your budget review?
I sure am. I spent some time putting together some year-end and information like that.
Oh, there he is.
There, do you have me? There we go. Yeah, I spent some time putting together some year-end information and forgot to actually pull my budget up. So I'm getting that now. Lee, okay, so you do have me able to share. With your permission, I might give just a little bit of background as far as where we are.
Can we turn him up? Like, is there a volume thing that works?
You turn up on the TV. Just turn up the TV.
Or I don't know, are you guys hearing him okay?
No, it's kind of quiet.
No, about
Well,
Okay. All right, Luke, sorry, just wasn't hearing you very well without making you scream on your end.
My typical go-to whenever I hear someone say they can't hear me well is just to start moving my lips instead of anything.
Nice.
So in this case, so I wanted to go through, without going through a whole huge spiel, but in the same breath at this time of year, I like to give you a brief where we were last year and then introduce the budget on that standpoint. I think you saw it. I'll introduce the budget standpoint just from the point that there is very little change from what you've seen in the past. But I am just going to share a couple of things because I think it is you can see that from what we've requested, what we've spent, it's not a huge difference. But generally what I like to do, if it's okay, is I'd like to tell you where we've been from a standpoint of revenue to show you kind of how we're using your money more than anything else to give you an idea. So with your permission, Lee, I might share a couple of tables that I just made or a couple of charts I just made here from last year and then come back to this in just a second.
I'll stop sharing and then you should be able to share.
Okay, that sounds good. I threw together, I'm going to start with last year on a couple of these charts that I put in. You can see the track on this. You can see my annual building permits I list, and I really, a couple of years ago, really revamped how we did this to just kind of show our track as far as number of permits we issue, and then splitting them joint area versus the rest of the county. And my first set of tables is going to look a little bit weak to a degree because I did not include any of the wind towers into here because I felt like that's a one shot into the arm. So I wanted to show that first, and then I'll put in the total values once we do that. Annual building permits, we issued 106 building permits from the bulk of the county. That was a construction value of $12.3 million. You can see kind of where that goes in trend line that follows this trend line here that you see kind of established back in 04, working its way up. And so that falls within trend is where that is, although the number is a little bit less than we would typically see. I'm going to scroll this over a little bit. And to show you that from a standpoint of permits, what we generally have, we're still at about 25 to 28% of the permits we issue, slightly higher in the joint jurisdiction area. That is the area around the city of Watertown. And so that gives you an idea, 25 to 81 there for the bulk of the county. Construction value, this kind of shows you in 2019, a little over 3 million in the joint area, 9.2 in the rest of the county. So again, the main thing is that percentage stays about the same as you can imagine. Same thing for fees, 25% plus or minus comes from that joint area. Total of fees there in that area. Let me see if I have that on here. the total dollar value of fees for revenue for building permits. That doesn't count Board of Adjustment items. $24,639.50. You can see where that runs in terms of our history. I rather than show you the chart, it just kind of shows you there's only one outlier, or only a couple of outliers that are higher than that. So it shows you that realistically it was a pretty good year in terms of value. And that's without what we had for revenue from wind towers. I'm going to show you the actual construction value in the county and building permit fees that were generated. Again, this is very, here, I'm going to hide this because this means nothing here. Again, this is skewed because this is a one-year thing, so I didn't really want to include it in the trends. But 2019 total construction value for the county was $143,884,875 is what total construction value. Of course, a lot of that includes the wind towers. Total building permit fee revenue of what I show in here was $242,109.50. Obviously, that would have destroyed my other line charts, and I like a nice, pretty line chart. So from a standpoint of what you're seeing, obviously a large proportion, 97% of the building permit fee revenue and construction value came from outside of that joint area, which makes sense because that's where the wind farms were. So that tells us where we were last year. Just kind of give you an idea. And the logical question is, Luke, what do you expect that to carry forward this year? Is that a one-time shot in the arm? And I would tell you it's probably a two-time shot in the arm. We are going to have a year similar, though not quite as high this year in terms of revenue. And again, I know we're talking 2021, but I'm looking a little retrospective here. And I'm going to stop sharing this one and go to one other table just to show you where we're at for this year. And mid-year does not appear to be on here. So I won't, I'll just tell you that for this year, we have, this year, if you're sketching numbers down with you, we have at this point issued a total of 121 building permits at this point this year. That is through July 31st. We've issued 121 building permits out of the zoning office. 57 of those are for the standard sort of thing. Let me take that back. 56 are through the sort of things you would generally see: grain bins, decks, fences, houses, garages, that sort of thing. 65 of those have been for wind towers. There are, I believe, 14 more wind tower permits expected to be submitted here in the coming months. So that'll increase that number. So far, I'm going to count 64 of those together, which were with Crown Ridge 2. Total construction value out of those 64 permits, and mind you, 2 of those were for fences. But through Blattner and Crown Ridge 2, total construction value for their projects was $100.5 million. Permit fees generated there were $119,128.50. For the rest of the county, throw in another $6 million worth of construction value with $10,386 in permit fees. Total at this point, 121 permits, $106,483,832. Permit fees, $129,514.50. Bottom line is that this is year 2 of a shot in the arm in terms of revenue from building permits. I clearly do not expect that to continue going into 2021, but it's a nice wave to ride into the following year. So that, yeah.
I have a question. Remind me and the other board members here, the fees that we collect, where does that revenue go?
It goes into the general fund. Cindy, you might be able to help me a little more, but yeah, it goes into the general fund is the way that's set up. But we typically try to do a report like this to show you, the goal is obviously for the zoning office to kind of self-sustain itself. Probably my main point in doing this and showing you all of this is more or less to show that we've got a shot in the arm here. And honestly, building permit revenues for the rest of the county have been pretty solid in the past. I'm a little concerned about this year, which I'll bring up in a minute, but bottom line is it goes into the general fund is where that revenue goes.
That's correct.
We don't have, since it's like a 1 or 2 shot in the arm and we know what's coming from wind towers, we're not gonna divvy that out more for the highway department because of
Nope.
the roads and stuff.
Nope,
Okay.
nope, nope,
Yeah.
nope. It stays in the general fund, although the general fund does transfer money
Yep.
to the highway every year for operating
Mhm.
because they don't generate enough revenue on their own.
Hey, Luke, could you email those charts to us? Just,
Absolutely. You would have had them had I had them ready in time to email. So
Hey,
Yes,
Luke, I got a question for you, just because it was posed to me the other day, and it doesn't really have to do with numbers so much, but though that wind tower, that Crown Ridge 2, how many towers are they putting up in Codington County?
they have
Yeah.
Crown Ridge 2, the permits that have been done. I'd have to go back and double check. It's either 61 or 62
Okay.
is
Okay.
how many we've issued there. And then Dakota Range is the other one. And I believe that number will be 15, but those will be mostly built next year, I believe.
Okay. Thank you. That's a lot.
That project is almost split. Crown Ridge 2, that is almost split down the middle, from my understanding, between South and Eastern Codington County and Dual County, with just a couple of them in Grant County. The Northern Codington and Grant County phase was with Crown Ridge 1. Again, Crown Ridge 1 was last year, and that I believe was close to 80 building permits, counting some substations and things like that. So that kind of gives you an idea what Crown Ridge was. And Dakota Range is a substantially smaller project by terms of our county. However, they're back up into Grant and Roberts County.
There's a lot of work going on up there though, and part of that is in Codington County, just north of my place. I was up there the other day and like you said, I don't think there's gonna be any towers going up, but there's a substation going up and there's a lot of work being done already.
Yeah, where you sit would be on the northern end of that.
Yep.
Meyer. So that kind of, I really wanted to, I hadn't really brought a ton of that up, but yeah, I wanted to throw this into a fact sheet for you commissioners, just so that you've got it. And so that you know those charts I put on there. I'll do the one the way I showed you, just kind of from a trend line standpoint, and then I'll use this pie chart that I've got on here as well. Typically, I'll include, what's that?
I like all the charts.
Yeah, I figured that. I do too, honestly. So what I don't have into there is this year I didn't throw in conditional uses and variances. If I get time, I'll do that, but I don't want to bog down the time frame. I'd rather just crank this out to you right away. The one thing that I will point out into this year, before I get into the budget going into next year, is it probably isn't totally shocking that we didn't have a ton of people coming in and doing large construction projects over the spring, given that people were at home. That doesn't mean people weren't building though. When I look at the number of building permits of 56 building permits, that's in line with what we typically see early on. But I will point out that, in fact, at one point I started answering the phone as, "Thanks for holding. This is Luke. Would you like to build a deck or a fence?" Bottom line is there were a lot of people that sat at home through COVID, or their kids were at home at COVID, and they realized they either wanted to keep their kids in or their dogs in and build a deck. We did a lot of deck and fence permits over that time frame. So smaller projects is what we've seen a lot of. So you can see some of that value. Now that said, $3 million is nothing to shake a stick at, but it's less than we've seen in the first 6 months of a lot of years. So just kind of wanted to brace you for that, that the rest of the county, we may see numbers. I have no reason to guess this, but I'm going to say probably total value pushing around 80% of what we saw last year for the rest of the county is kind of what I'm expecting. So with that, I'll get into the budget presentation, which will be far less than what I just talked about. Leah, yeah, I was just going to say, Leah, if you want to put that up, go for it. The preparation, I am going to have my own sheet here. I really don't have a lot planned for increases. I just wanted to show
Am I on the right one with the planning board one? Is
Yes.
that
You
the-
are. Yes, you are. Yeah, I'm gonna go through here and make sure that my lines match what you're showing on there. But the primary increase that you see there, tried to hold pretty much everything the same, but the primary increase you see is going to be in the top right corner with planning board wages and salaries. While we did not increase the first district charge from what we had in 2020, I did budget into there the increase per meeting. Excuse me just a second here, I got caught. We did budget into there the increased board member per meeting increase, previously approved increase in per meeting to the board members. There was a $40 per meeting per member increase that you had approved earlier, so I had to account for that within the budget. It wasn't accounted for 2020. From a standpoint of where we'll come in for 2020, I expect that number to not be terribly far off from that $3,000 though that we had requested for 2020, given that we haven't had travel. We've been doing things via Zoom, and I'll close with something on that in a little bit. And then the fringe, the OASI has to increase because we're having more per meeting. So with that is the primary increase. The rest of it is left flat all the way from last year. I did make a note in what I had submitted to expect a increase for 2022. We'll probably increase that rate again for zoning services if you're so inclined to have yours truly or someone from first district being zoning officer still. And then in the end, the total number you have down there for a planning board expenses is, I wanted to just double check. For planning board expenses directly attributed to them will be $40,290.50. However, we also include the first district annual dues, which you would pay whether we were here or not. So that gets rolled into that. So it winds up being a total in our planning board budget of $85,013. Overall, that's an increase. Going back to my $40,290, which is the operating budget for the planning board office, that's an increase of 3%. Is what we have, a $1,148 increase. That's a total 3% increase from last year's budget is what it is. It's expected, obviously, that the building permits, in fact, we're already far past that for this. Let me take that back. It's expected that the building permits for next year and board fees should probably cover that. I do want to caution, I have warned this several years, but we do need to increase the fees on variances and conditional uses. I've always been hesitant to do that because the bulk of our variances are existing farmstead exemptions. And oftentimes that turns into 3 variances for the price of 3 variances, in all honesty. And so to get 1, you got to get 3, and try not to gouge people in doing that, but we're going to have to increase those Board of Adjustment fees just from a standpoint of having board members coming to meetings, paying for that, as well as I think everyone sitting on this call and anyone who's ever been to a meeting knows that aside from just answering day-to-day questions, that's where the bulk of the time comes in serving winds up being prepping, organizing, and getting ready for meetings. So we'll probably have to increase those fees on those. We are probably the lowest fees in terms of variances and conditional uses in the neighborhood here. So we'll probably have to do a resolution to increase those next year. But I've been warning that a couple of years, but I think we probably better do that for next year.
Right.
So with
Just-
that, I'll answer any questions.
It's been a little while since that's been done on the increase of those fees.
That's correct. And I would still say, I don't plan on, I don't see any need to increase building permit fees. I think that's been, that percentage has done a really good job of keeping up, but the variances and conditional uses, I think we need to bump that. We've just been trying to figure out a smart way to do that so we don't, like I said, we don't really hit these, folks trying to do, just asking for a simple question. So we'll try to get smart with how we do that.
Sounds good. Anyone else have any questions? No, doesn't sound like it, Luke. So thank you for being patient and coming back.
Well, that's fine. I just wanted to, I know I've brought this up a few times, but I just kind of wanted to give you a rundown office protocol as to how we've done things and how we're handling meetings right now too. I've been trying to update all the counties that I work with as far as how we're running them and expecting us. We still out of our office are not traveling unless absolutely positively determined necessary by the folks that we're going to. And I'd urge you to consider keeping things that way for our office. Again, like I tell people, it wouldn't be an issue for me to go to Codington County for their meetings, but the problem is where do we stop? Right now I talk about the projects that I'm working on cover cities in Codington, Grant, Hamlin, Lake, Moody, Brookings, Dual counties as of now. So again, like I said, the problem is not necessarily going to see you. It's the fact that I've also been in every other town in those areas too. And I hate to be the mule that's carrying something that we don't really want to be carrying. So kind of a know it all is kind of how we've been doing it. From a standpoint of, and please get a hold of me if you've got any concerns with that, or Todd as well. The main thing as far as zoning office, we have been doing things over phone and internet. And honestly, the biggest strain is that Becky and I miss each other mostly between the offices. We've been able to keep up. As you can see, we've issued more building permits in the first 7 months of this year than we've issued in any first 7 months in the history of Codington County. But we've been able to keep up on building permits and it's taken a little bit more work on our office part, trying to work together with each other. I've never told anyone I refuse to meet with them face to face in any event. But I've had people been able to get their building permits over the phone, over Zoom. I've been able to answer questions. Heck, I've even been able to be yelled at over the phone. So it's all worked perfect for everybody. Maybe not quite perfect, but it has worked for all of the purposes. What we're finding is that telezoning works. If telemedicine can work, telezoning seems to be working pretty well. I'm not saying we're going to do this forever, but as of now, it seems to be working. I don't see a huge urgency. And then the last point, as far as meetings go, the plan is to continue handling things the way we have, which is handling things over Zoom meetings. However, we do have to provide a physical location for the state based on state law for people to come and participate, view and participate in a meeting. So what we did the last meeting is what we'll probably continue doing and make sure that it keeps working. It'll be tweaked, I'm sure, but I set up essentially another Zoom portal there at the extension building. I sat there at the extension building in the office and then had a camera, projector, everything set up there with instructions as to how to go, and trust adults to be adults at the meetings and be quiet when they're not talking and follow rules. And I guess if we have to have someone there to enforce or remind people to, okay, it's your turn and so on, we'll do that. But as of now, I'm trusting people to be adults. So hopefully it's been working. And if it's not, then like I said, get a hold of me and I'll do my best to address it directly with whoever it's not working with. And if it is, then awesome. So with that, sorry to take up so much of your time, but I just wanted to give you, that's what happens when I don't come in very often. I like to talk to you.
No, I would say it's been working and that was an opportunity. We still did not have any individuals that showed up in person, but they do have that opportunity. So I think all's good. I haven't had any complaints.
Thank you.
Thank you, Luke.
Thanks,
Thank you
Luke.
all.
Thanks, Luke.
Have a good day. All right, so we'll move back up to number 11. We have the one personnel change that we need to address. Someone would want
Yeah, I'll
to,
make a motion to approve the personnel change with an effective date of July 29th, since that is blank.
all right,
Second the motion.
got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that motion carries. I guess all we have left is to adjourn unless someone has something else.
So moved.
Oh, boy, I don't know who made
All of
that.
us made the
Oh,
motion.
I'll second the three of them making that.
Okay,
I'll just wait.
By unanimous decision.
all righty, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
I'm just gonna give it to Charlotte.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a concern. Are we done?